So, a few days ago, Tanner Leatherstein, a leather craftsman, actually gave us an update on the whole Birkin bag debacle. So, I thought it would be a great opportunity to react to exactly what he said.
TikTok trade wars. So it turns out there is another trend going on, and I'm not aware, as I'm off news and social media for 5 years now. But regardless, I got so many questions, I had to do my commentary on a family trip that I'm in Barcelona now. So I watched the main video where the guy breaks down the cost of a Birkin.
So now to sum those up, the total cost will be 1,400 USD for one Birkin out of factory.
For a $38,000 Birkin. And this might surprise you, but his cost estimate is too high. And there are other inaccuracies in his original video. So let's break down that video and point out the accurate and inaccurate information in his video. He starts with listing the materials and the cost of it. And he shows a leather that says Togo. But the leather there, this leather, is not Togo. The second thing he says is true. The material supply chain, everything is available in China. Yes, that is true.
So it's already interesting because even the leather that he claimed he's using, he's not using. So he's claiming that, he's able to make a Birkin the same quality as the actual Birkin, but he's not even using the right leather. And Tanner has already pointed that out, which is already, off to a terrible start. Of course, a lot of people misconstrued what the Chinese manufacturer said when he said that, in France they have a high labor cost, but in China we have a lower labor cost. So therefore, I can, make this Birkin bag exactly the same, but at a fraction of the price. Which is basically him talking about the labor cost in France, is him admitting to the fact that, Hermes actually has factories in France and that's where they produce their bags. You can go on Hermes's website and they literally have a map of a lot of places where they produce, but still, people will let the misinformation, soothe into their minds. But let's watch on.
A lot of Chinese buyers drop $500,000 on one leather shipment in European tanneries to buy real Togo to make counterfeit bags. That's true, leather is available, but most of the counterfeits in China doesn't use that real leather. And, those tanneries can't even make that much anyways.
Interesting. So he said most of the counterfeiters don't use that quality of leather that is normally used by these brands, especially a brand like Hermes, which is very much, one of the top quality bag makers in the world. As far as a luxury brand goes, of course, there are more low-key brands that make the same quality and independent artisans that can do that. But as far as brands go, Hermes is definitely close to the top. But I wouldn't be surprised if, there are some manufacturers in China that manufacture dupes that use the same thing. I mean, the manufacturing industry, as far as dupes go, is huge. They make so much money. Of course, there's a shady side to that business. A lot of, counterfeiters are tied to drug rinks that, do things like human trafficking and different crazy things like that. It's insane. People always think of things as like a victimless crime. There's this mentality online where it's like, I'm just going to buy the dupe. You guys are stupid for buying the real thing. But the thing is, buying a dupe doesn't necessarily mean that, no one is affected. What about the people that are being human trafficked using your money? You have to think about all these things.
Then he says,
One piece of Togo leather, the same leather as this one, will cost 450 USD.
That's not true. The Togo from Weinheimer today costs about $330. On average, 22 square foot at 13 euros a foot. You do the math. He says another true thing about the stainless steel, the ocean steel hardware.
The hardware. See, for one piece of bag, the hardware will cost 150 USD.
Yes, that's the top grade hardware and it's available in China. That's also true. But it doesn't cost $150. That's also padded. But then he adds up all these costs, saying that the total is $1,450. That sounds a bit steep to me because I was in Guangzhou last month. I've seen these top level fake Birkins that is way better than the one he's showing in the video. And they were selling at $500, made with real Togo and stainless steel. So I'm assuming his exaggeration is to sell
That's crazy because he's not using the real Togo and he's selling it for way more, and the bags that are using the actual top quality leather are cheaper. That's crazy.
his fakes or dupes at a 3x multiplier, leveraging a trend now. And that's kind of where the problem starts, because if you're gonna expose anything, if there's anything to expose, you better be accurate. And there's so many inaccuracies in this video that kind of makes me not to think much of this content. He also has a very accurate point where he says China has the skills and talent as well as the materials.
Yeah, we've spoken about this already in my previous video about made in China. China has the skills much like anyone else. The only difference is, like I said in my previous video, and if you haven't watched it, please watch it. You'll learn a lot probably. Is that different countries still specialize in different things. So yes, China can make, most things to the quality of most other places, especially in Europe. But if you want the highest quality denim in the world, probably just go to Japan. Japan is probably where you're going to find that, not China. So China has expertise in a lot of things, but not absolutely everything. But in the case of, making leather bags, making luxury goods, a lot of the expertise is in China for sure.
It's absolutely true. But the problem is most of that talent is going to make fakes or dupes of these known brands. In my opinion, why not China is producing their own designs, own brands, using these beautiful hardware, beautiful material they have, with incredible skill they have, all I know and believe, and sell that bag for $500.
So this is a really good point that he brought up, that why don't the Chinese brands, since they have all this expertise, why don't they kind of build their own brand and then therefore sell it for the cheaper price and make it affordable? The problem with that is so many things. First of all, there's still a perception of people that made in China means bad quality, which doesn't, and I keep saying it on the channel. The reason why a lot of people associate China with bad quality is because there are bad quality products that come from China, because brands have the intention of making low quality products because they want, the cheapest production cost possible. Temu, Shein, different electronic products. You've probably had some fake iPhone, like AirPods, where they've broken after you've worn it for a week, those kind of things. But China also makes some of the highest quality cars, electronics, things like iPhones. So they have the expertise to do both. It's normally the intention of the company that's telling them to make the things that will determine the actual quality of the end product. But because of that association, it's very difficult for a Chinese manufacturer to build a brand around Chinese manufacturing and Chinese craftsmanship, because the average consumer still, for some strange reason, doesn't understand that, really high quality comes from China. There's a perception against it. The West is better than Asia. So if it comes from the West, it must be good. If it comes from Asia, it must be bad, which is not true. There's, European brands that are horrific, and then European brands that are good. There are, Chinese brands that are amazing quality, and then Chinese companies that the quality of their goods are atrocious. These things are not a monolith, right? So that's probably why they don't do that, because they know people are so obsessed with the European brands. They know they're going to make way more money just making fakes for a cheaper price of these bags than, making their own designs. And for the most part, people will have no interest. It's sad because people say that they care about quality, but then they still buy the dupes of a luxury brand instead of, actually protesting with their wallets and just not buying anything that's to do with a certain brand, whether it's the real or the fake. So yeah, that's probably why they don't do that.
Which is very profitable in their cost structures. Believe me, I know. But the problem is why your option should be a dupe of a classic iconic bag from a European brand. Why not these individuals make their own creations and offer that quality at a very affordable price point under their own brand name? That's the real challenge I invite all Chinese people to take on in this trade war. I think that's the real meaning. I'm not here to judge anybody making fake bags, anybody buying or using fake bags, but here's what I think. Here's my understanding of the concept. And I think it should start with increasing the moral looseness that China has on some of these matters, because if you're gonna make a video that's gonna go viral and impact the world, it better be accurate, otherwise you're gonna lose your credibility. TikTok.
So that was a great video. Not too long ago, I went to Turkey and I made a fashion documentary, which you can find on this channel. And I spoke to people from all walks of the fashion industry in Turkey, from the manufacturers to the lecturers, the journalists, all different people, to try and have a true understanding of the manufacturing capacity in Turkey, kind of what the fashion scene is like in Turkey. And Turkey has kind of a very similar issue. Turkey is, I think, a bit ahead of China in that sense, but Turkey is more seen as a producer country by brands. A lot of brands produce a lot of their garments in Turkey, but a lot of Turkish designers and a lot of Turkish brands struggle to build like a world. They struggle with the world building and the narrative around building brands, so they would rather just work for luxury brands rather than build their own brands, which is sad because I think Turkey has amazing factories, amazing manufacturers, and they have so much expertise that they could really use to export like this whole idea of what Turkish fashion is to the world with certain brands, you know, that talk about the merit of Turkish fashion and the quality and the craftsmanship. There were so many cool designers I met in Turkey at the time that had brands, but their brands are not mainstream, but the quality of a lot of the stuff that they make is top notch, but no one buys it because people are so obsessed with specific luxury names in Europe. And I just hope that through this whole conversation that we're going to be having over the course of these few days, covering this whole China TikTok mess, that people actually explore different brands. Don't just stick to the same old European brands that you're used to buying. Don't, just because, you know, if you can't afford the real one, don't buy the fake. Just find an alternative brand completely and support them. Support, you know, these up and coming designers. I think we have to have less of an obsession with these big luxury names. And I think the more we think like that, the better for all of us, to be honest.